everyone.
Hi,
Welcome to Dice Jailers. My name is Jordan,
I'm Bjorn.
and today we are joined by our special guest star, Pixie,
Puppy.
the puppy of our favorite little goblin, Nate.
That's right.
You've seen him in one of our one shots, or
hmm
maybe more,
At least one.
at least one. Yeah. Dog sitting for the night, so we have puppy playtime in the background, just barely off screen.
On screen and off screen, and kind of wherever the puppy feels the need to be.
100%. And
Yep,
probably going to be chewing up part of my apartment.
it's likely. It's,
But
how it works.
so besides the puppy, this
Yes.
week we are talking about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and why it's such an important book for D&D 5th edition.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's good.
but before we get into that,
Yep.
Bjorn, how you been, bud?
I'm good. See here, this past weekend was incredibly busy in the best way. Um, you know, dinner gigs are regular and those pay, and I like being paid to perform. It is something I'm quite fond of. I got an audition lined up next week, as well
Nice.
as everything with the podcast is going well so far. Last
Mhm.
read through for Much Ado is going to be next week. Then we record it at the end of the month. And this Sunday is the end of our campaign. We have,
Sunday, Sunday,
yeah, it's gonna be
Sunday.
so good. Phoenix is gracious enough to host us all. He has informed us he's making a brisket, so he's feeding us smoked beef. Um,
Oh, it's gonna be so
I
good.
don't know. I don't know how to not be excited about this. It's
There's no reason to not be excited about this.
yeah, and this is the last month without regular season NFL
hmm
and for quite a while, and I'm very excited about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
So,
if you haven't been around since the beginning, Bjorn and I are huge sports nerds as well as
yeah.
D&D nerds, and we
Yes.
love our local sports teams, especially the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not love them. Like they're either, some people in Seattle, like some of you fans have gotten real spoiled by going to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Y'all have been spoiled. Stop acting like making the playoffs is disappointing. Be happy when you make the playoffs.
Right. Remember the
Shoot.
years that we didn't? Good God.
I remember them vividly. They were called the 90s. I'm very, very familiar with
Yep.
those years.
Uh,
So yeah, things are
Good
good.
times.
What's new though? What's good? How are you?
Things are going great in Jordan World.
Yeah,
Uh, I've got uh, I've got a potential show for like forever in the future.
that's good.
Still have to hear back about casting, but like
Mhm.
auditions, callbacks, that kind of thing have happened. Now it's just a waiting game.
Oh
And
yeah,
I've got an online interview tomorrow
excellent.
for a teaching job. So that'll
Yes,
be great. So I can still be doing what I love, but making some actual money, which would be nice.
yes.
Uh,
It's, it helps. It
and
helps.
it's it's not in West Seattle, so I can actually get to the job.
Yeah, no kid, no
Yeah.
man's land out there.
But no, it's just it's in North Seattle, so like I can get after that pretty easily.
Hell yeah.
Especially after October when the the light rail line to Northgate will be up.
Finally,
They slated a date. Northgate, it's going to be up. I think the first week of October.
it's good to know. It's good to
Yep.
know. Maybe I'll have to keep that in mind for a few things.
Yep. Because I've got a buddy of mine that lives right near there, so I'll be able to hang with him much easier.
Oh hell
And
yeah.
that's the Saint.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very good friend of the show.
Yes. And like he's just gotten back from his honeymoon, so like now is the time to kick it.
Yes.
And but yeah, things are just everything's coming up Millhouse.
Argue with that. I mean,
Yeah. Like things are just going good. I mean, obviously all the things that are going good in my life are very tenuous right now and uncertain,
sure.
and they may not happen but just the prospect of something good is enough to get the happy chemicals going in the brain. So
Which is, that's not nothing.
yeah,
It's not quite everything,
no,
but
it's
it's
not.
not nothing.
Yeah, but you can't say it's
It's
everything.
not everything. Like you couldn't fill a cauldron with it because it's not
Not
a
quite.
cauldron of everything. That's the segue.
Welcome back to Dice Jailers, where we have sloppy but fun segues.
Yeah, I actually, before we really talk about it, I just wanna nitpick on the name of the book.
Hmm.
I feel like Cauldron of Everything was sort of a weak name. Like Xanathar's Guide to Everything, I liked it. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Couldn't her Cauldron have been something a little more magical, mystical?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just the fun of like playing into the D&D lore of like Tasha's this crazy powerful witch.
Oh
Like
yeah, no,
here
Tasha's
we are.
amazing. Great
Yeah,
character.
and so I get the choice of saying cauldron because she's a witch. Witches brew things in
I
cauldrons.
like the cauldron part. It's the everything that bothers me. I just feel like it's
Yeah,
it's a it's a weak word for them to use. But
yeah.
I digress.
But it's a great book, and it
It's
had
amazing.
huge changes for all of Dungeons and Dragons Fifth Edition that
Yes.
make it so very different than all the rest of the books that have come out. Because some people are like, yeah, sure, it's Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, but like it's just another source book, right? No.
It's it it really flipped the script on how you could do all creation.
Mm-hmm.
It's if there was someone was a player and they only owned the player's handbook and they could only buy one supplemental, it's going to come down to Xanathar's or Tasha's, and I'm going to steer people towards Tasha's
Oh,
every time.
absolutely. And that
Um,
and that kind of thing was done on purpose
mhm,
uh, by the publishers that because of the rules for Adventurers League, where it's like, all right, because a lot of DMs will be like, okay, to help limit you to kind of being together all of this party, you can use the player's handbook and one or two other books.
right.
And they specifically made Tasha's they compiled Tasha's in a way that it was easy to be able to be like, all right, player's handbook, Tasha's, one other thing.
Right. I mean, you could just do Player's Handbook and Tasha's and do really well.
Oh, and you could
Uh,
do a
uh,
bunch of different things.
I think one of the things I love about it most, there is a subclass for every single class in the game
Mm-hmm.
within Tasha's. And
It's not like some of the other supplemental books that are like, all right, we've got this book, we've got a subclass for these three classes, and that's it.
right. And a lot of the ones in there are interesting. Like, you know, Wizards, okay, it had the Order of Scribes, that was the
Yeah.
new one, but I love that it had the new Blade Singer, where it removed the restriction of being an elf.
Yep.
And that was a lot of what happened in Tasha's too, is a lot of restrictions were lifted.
Mm-hmm.
You still see people griping about the custom lineages
Yep.
on it. And while and we've talked about this before. While
Yeah.
I'm against the idea of every dwarf in your world being so vastly different in all the skills they can
Mm-hmm.
have, like okay, most of them should have a fairly high constitution. And if they're a mountain dwarf, they should have pretty high strength.
Yep.
Mountain dwarves just naturally have good strength and good constitution. But that doesn't mean there isn't one that
Yeah.
has really high intelligence and really high charisma, maybe. And I think it gives players a lot more flexibility
Yeah.
to decide who their character is.
And that was a big thing that a lot of pieces of Tasha's really did was that it brought back some of that 3.5 and Pathfinder like customization that
Right.
we especially me loves like but don't get it twisted. I am in the camp of not exactly a fan of having the custom lineages being so
Right.
easily done and widely available because you can just talk to your DM about it. But that's just me. Because
I
then that gives in my brain anything that gives min maxers easier ways to min max I don't like that much.
Sure.
because I personally don't like min-maxing. That's just a me thing. That's not to say it's bad. It's just not a thing I
Right.
like.
It's not for you. I think like I agree with you. Like just talk to your DM. That's usually the answer to almost everything.
Mm,
However, I do like the custom lineage rules being in there because you do get those DMs who are like, well, the rules don't actually allow it, and I don't know how we would make it work. And this book gives you a template where
yeah.
it says, oh, you want to have this custom lineage?
Like,
Here's how it
all
works.
right,
Take this,
designers,
take
make
this,
it
take
work.
this. Yeah. And I think it also it makes it so newer players would be more comfortable creating those more custom builds where
True.
maybe they have this idea where they're like, well, I want my character to be like a half Goliath, so I kind of want to have like some Goliath stuff, and I but the other half I want it to be like Yon T, and so I'm thinking this and this,
Yep.
and I could see where a DM who, if they're fairly new, they might go, man, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Right.
Whereas this
Like,
gives
I
you a
don't know how to
template,
start.
yeah, where you're going, okay, take a little of this, take a little of this, build it together, and now you've got a big snake.
Yep. The biggest snake.
So yeah, this book from a player standpoint, I can't even begin to say how incredibly valuable I think it
Well,
is. Like,
you're going to have to try because that's what this whole episode's about.
I know. Honestly, one of my favorite things, it's right when you start off, the using this book, the very first
Hmm.
section, the fact that it says, okay, here's what you'll find in here. Chapter 1 features subclasses, similar to the player's handbook.
Hmm.
Then you get to patrons, you get some magical options, and lastly, you get some rules the DM can incorporate. It breaks it down, and then the very second thing straight up says it's all optional. It's
Hmm.
a reminder that from we talked about this before. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Much like Captain Barbosa said about the Pirate's Code, it's more what you'd call guidelines.
Yep.
And I love that. The fact that when it gets the rules to remember, rule number 1 is that the DM adjudicates. DM is final say
Yep.
on anything, which is
And
how it should always be. And if you don't like the way that a DM runs a game, leave the table.
yeah.
Just the game's big now. You can find another table. It's not like it was 15 years ago.
Sorry, I keep looking down. The sound of Pixie chewing this
Yep,
sounds almost exactly like the same sound of her trying to rip up my carpet.
that's
So
fair.
every
That
time I hear that sound, I'm just like,
Gotta
"Are
check in.
you? Nope.
Gotta
It's
check in with the
just
puppy.
it's just chewing on the thing."
And then I also love that number 10 on the rules to remember that it lists this as a rule. Rule number 10, have fun.
Yeah.
Because we come back to that too. This is a game. Like it should be fun
Yeah. And
for
there's
everybody.
bits of me that's like, "All right, yeah, one of the rules is have fun. All right." But it is kind of cool that they put it in
Yeah.
because
Some people need to be reminded.
absolutely. Like
Some people take this shit way too seriously.
people that take this game as like, all right, I'm gonna show how masterfully I can do accounting in a game.
I
Like, all
know.
right, no, dude, it's a
Like
game, my dude.
let's have fun.
Yeah.
And it's also I think a good reminder to have in there, like as a rule, to basically go, okay, if you have this tension between players and DM or players and players where people aren't having fun, you need to re-examine the game and how
Hmm.
it's going, and why it's going that way and what changes you can make. Because I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of ways to spend your free time.
There
And
are like
i
playing with a puppy,
I know, oh
like
man,
playing with
yeah.
a puppy.
Yes, you definitely have a proficiency in playing with puppies,
It's
without
true.
question.
I
You
do
might
it a
have
lot.
expertise, actually. You might have expertise.
I mean, maybe we'd have to try it out.
Yeah, there's only really one way to
Definitely
know.
proficiency in animal handling, though.
Oh, without question, yeah.
Yep.
I you know what I'd say? I think because you're so familiar and it's such an enthusiastic puppy, I would let you do animal handling or persuasion.
Oh,
I
okay.
think you
Yeah,
go
I do
persuasion
that.
on that. Yeah.
That would not go well because as much as I love this playful puppy, she does not listen to me much.
I mean, as it is to be a puppy,
Yep.
but
But back on Tasha's.
yes,
Uh, personally, I think my biggest thing with Tasha's and the thing that really changed the landscape of D&D Fifth Edition, in my opinion, with that book is the addition of the optional class rules. Just that as a
Yes.
thing. Like, here are these optional class rules. Here are also replacement class rules.
Right?
Yeah, and just that as a mechanic for the entirety of 5th edition, that I think is really like the biggest change that Tasha's introduces. And that's why I think this book is like such an important different book than all the other source books.
And
Uh
those like optional rules you talk about, I really like them because I feel like they help enhance all of the classes
mhm.
without being overpowered. Like for a wizard, you finish a long rest, you can change out your cantrips. To me,
That makes sense.
that's really awesome because maybe you pick some of those cantrips at level 1 and you get a ways into the campaign and you realize I don't use mage hand at all. I don't
It would
need
be
this.
surprising if you didn't use
Sure.
Mage Hand at
Or
all,
like
but
actually in the case of my wizard, message. I had an idea of like, oh,
mhm.
this is how I'll use message, just the way I'll cast it. It'll be nice and secretive. And because we travel as such a tightly knit group almost all the time, because it's safer that way,
Mhm.
I used message maybe 2 times in our first 7 or 8 sessions.
Yeah.
And so I dropped it. I haven't had it since. And I've had more fun with my character
Yep.
since then. And the same thing with the barbarian, getting that extra movement at 7th level when you enter a rage. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, when you enter a rage, you instantly can move, X number of feet.
Mhm.
That to me, again, as someone who's played barbarians, that's fun. Oh, I can close the distance to the threat even faster because that's where I was going anyways.
Yep.
So
See, and for me, it's not even what the changes are, but the fact that now that exists
yeah.
as a mechanic, so future source books can use that to add other optional rules, and they are it's even in the title of it is an optional rule.
And
uh I mean, a lot of them seem more like, I mean, it's optional, but you should fucking do it.
yeah,
But
yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Extra movement for barbarian. Do it.
yeah, like there's some optional rules that expand spell lists,
Yeah, like
and
why
I'm just
wouldn't
like,
you?
why wouldn't you use it? Why wouldn't your DM let you use it? Like, uh and like, and just for on a personal note, a change to my favorite class that has been so goddamn bullied in 5th
It
edition.
was
My
this
Beastmaster Ranger's back, boy.
it was so needed because like we talked about this when we did our Rangers episode
Mm-hmm.
that the Beastmaster to me is was and always will be the quintessential ranger. When you
Absolutely.
say ranger, that's what I imagine. Whether they have like a falcon or a wolf or whatever, that's
Or
what
a
I
badger.
yeah, that's what I always imagine a ranger to be.
Yeah.
And so to see what it was in the player's handbook and go, this is borderline unplayable.
Mm-hmm.
um, I like that they went, okay, we'll call this an optional rule. So it's not a full errata,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but it's the next best thing to go, hey, use this instead. And it's
Yeah.
now playable.
And like that mechanic, the existence of it means that future quality of life changes can happen in source
Right.
books so easily, because it's just like, hey, we don't like that mechanic. Let's tack on an optional rule.
Yeah. Well, and
Like,
we're
let's
about to
just
see,
tack on an optional.
yeah, and I think we're about to see the next iteration of that when Fizzbands comes out later
Yeah.
this year because of how they're sort of redoing the Dragonborn. Um, Dragonborn as a race, they were a little underpowered.
Yeah.
The breath weapon became very quickly useless, and now they're just taking the Dragonborn and just doing some work with it, going, okay, this might be more balanced. It went through a couple of rounds of play test,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at what I think it's going to end up as for Fizzbands, I think it's going to be a very nice and welcome change. And I think that Tasha has helped set the groundwork for that. And then for the custom lineages, look at what we got in Van Richten's
Yep.
for for the
We got
Dampier,
Damn
for the
Fear, we
Hex
got
Blood.
Hexblood. Yeah.
Yeah, like those those you could not have done with the previous constraints.
Yeah. And I think like it's kind of like introducing the idea of DLC.
Yep.
Where like yeah, in 5th edition the other books were kind of DLC, but the way that these things are presented in Tasha's, it's like, "Oh, this is why the DLC makes sense." And here's
Yes.
DLC that I can tick on or off,
And to
much like with
me,
mods in a video
yeah.
game.
And to me, the other thing that makes like Tasha's beautiful, it's sort of a mini player's handbook and a mini dungeon master's guide in
Mm-hmm.
one. It has a lot for players, it has a lot for DMs. I don't know that I personally would want to try and run a campaign without those other two books, but if you had just the basic rules and Tasha's was the only book you bought, and then you only got free content from the Dungeon
Yeah,
Masters Guilds because you're going, we're on a budget, this game is expensive. I go, cool. You and your players pool your resources, buy Tasha's,
and you'll be
use the.
good.
Oh, here we go.
Here
I'll.
what?
Yeah. Did I? Yeah. You didn't understand every word of all of that.
Uh, no, not at
I'll.
all.
I'll say it not garbled, and I'll say it. I'll be brief. If you use just Tasha's, the basic rules online, which are free, and then free content from the Dungeon Masters Guild, you could create a vibrant campaign on a budget.
Oh,
And
100%.
that's part of what I like the book is DMs and players both can get a huge benefit from using it.
Good God. Did you already devour that thing that was supposed to last 45 minutes?
Oh, that's a good pixie. Good
Oh,
pixie chow down.
I'm proud of you, but good God.
I know, right?
But yeah, 100%. And Tasha's really lays the groundwork for being able to go back to that, like, all right, we've got this game on a budget. Because that's a big thing that, I mean, Wizards as a company has been trying to focus on. Is like, how can we get people into this game without it costing them an arm and a leg?
Right, which
And
is
that's
hard.
around all of their properties, not just
Yes.
D&D. And it's nice to see a whole company go on a focus like that and be able to see it done so well and so visibly
Yeah.
in a book like Tasha's.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things as a company Wizards needs to do better. Like
Yeah,
and
that's
that's a separate conversation,
yeah.
but there are some things that I do feel like they're doing right. The existence of the Dungeon Masters Guild, the fact that there's all this third party stuff that you will see people who work for Wizards in their live streams sometimes promote or
Mm-hmm.
use and talk about. The fact that like people like you and I are allowed to have this stream and talk about their product, that we could play the game on the stream and they're not
Mm-hmm.
going to do a cease and desist. They're not going to try and shut us down.
Looking at you,
They,
Nintendo.
right? I mean, come on. This is free advertising. And okay, not that we have the audience of say like a Critical Role,
Yeah,
but again, the fact that they don't care that you are Critical Role if you're going to use their content. They just go,
100%.
"Hey, you want to use it? Knock yourselves out.
Yep.
Have fun." And it's spawned so much creativity.
And I think it's a lot to say for like it's a lot to say for like
There's the guest star. Hi, Pixie.
it's a
Oh,
lot to say for like
Pixie.
for a company that they have people within the company working that are at high levels that actually use their products
Right.
normally and enjoy them as a fan, not just like this is what my company does.
Exactly.
And that's really starting to reflect in all of the products like in the last even just like 3 4 years, you know.
I couldn't agree more. And you were talking about how we could see future source books use things like optional rules in
Mm-hmm.
Tasha's. What I'm hoping we see are some adventures that give us some optional rules and that go, hey, for this adventure, go ahead and replace X with Y.
Yeah.
For this adventure, if you have such and such class, it can do this. I would love to
Mm-hmm.
see that really explored for adventure specific mods.
Mm-hmm. Now we've talked about the big like the big like game changing things that are in Tasha's.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about some of the smaller ones, specifically the Tasha subclasses,
Yeah.
because so many of the subclasses in Tasha's specifically, hey girl, doing a show right now. Specifically, they they are attempts to flip or change what that class can do.
You're not wrong.
Like
And
it's for me the girl is trying to drink my beverage. But you're it's easiest like that type of change is easiest seen with the wildfire druid.
yeah, it's like it's not what you expect out of a druid. It's
No.
a very aggressive build.
Yeah, but it makes sense because yeah, wildfires are a part of nature. They're an important part of nature. And
Yep.
Pixie, don't jump up on my bed because that's where all your stuff is. Good girl, you listen. Uh,
For now,
but
give it a minute.
because like it's that everything gets burnt down and then the rebirth out of the ashes, and you could very easily see that through like a phoenix themed like wizard class or a
Yeah.
warlock patron. Uh, but no, they went with a druid.
Yeah, looking at different aspects of nature as opposed to just like, the land or wild shaping.
It's like specifically that rebirth kind of motif.
Yeah, or talking about a class kind of getting it flipped on its ear a bit, the Oath of Glory Paladin,
Yeah.
where instead of, oh, I'm this, beacon of justice and I must uphold what is right, you're just like, I'm a hero, yo, and I'm gonna do great
Right.
fucking things.
It is
Just watch.
it is the fraternity paladin. Just
It's
my dude, I'm just here to do some dope shit.
it's a paladin with a TikTok account, is what it is.
How dare you be that accurate?
I mean, it's a paladin with a TikTok. That's the Oath of Glory, and that's part of why I love it. Is I think there's a lot of room to play with that, but just
Yeah.
going, I got these cool powers. I'm gonna do dope shit because I can. Um, it's a different kind of hero, different kind of
Mm-hmm.
adventurer where you don't have to be noble. You can just be like, I'm gonna be awesome and kick ass because the gods favor me because I'm so great. Like, I give me no one's as great as Gaston the Paladin, please.
Right. Yo.
Yeah,
Yo.
do a paladin like that. Just personality wise, is just Gaston. It's Oath of Glory right there.
You're not wrong. But I think that whole like notion of like, hey, your subclass doesn't have to be what we stereotypically think these classes would do
Yeah,
is also a thing that I really like to see, and I really like to see like that get started as a thing. And like you said earlier, that we've seen the implications of these things in Van Richten's with
yep,
the fortune teller bard.
yeah.
Like that's a completely different kind of bard,
It
but
really
it's still
is.
a bard.
And also, like, I like how some of the subclasses here, some of them just enhanced what that subclass was. Like, let's talk
Mm-hmm.
Order of the Scribes Wizard.
Yeah.
Like, you're the wizardiest wizard to ever wizard because you're all about smartness and writing stuff
Yep.
down. Or the College of Eloquence Bard,
You're the
which,
bardiest bard to ever bard.
but then, okay, yes, I know the Blade Singer was not brand new to Tasha's, but the fact that it's in there, um, that's not what you generally imagine from a wizard, is being up there in melee, using weapons, enhancing yourself in
Yeah.
combat. And then you also have the College of Creation Bard,
Yes.
which that's not how I ever imagined a bard, of like, oh, everything exists from music and song and all of that, and
Hmm.
it's really cool. You get these different takes on it
Yeah,
because we got different subclasses in Xanathars, but none of them to me were that mold breaking.
yeah.
I think the ones that got the closest were like the Order of Conquest Paladin
Hmm.
and maybe the Celestial Warlock.
Yeah, well, it's
But
interesting because the most of the subclasses that like tried to break the mold but didn't really break the mold were were the subclasses that we didn't like when we went through our list of all the classes
because they
because
felt wrong,
yeah, because they felt wrong because they were breaking the mold in not a satisfying way. They
right?
were breaking the mold into just being another class as opposed to what is this new stuff?
And you went, this makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
if you had told me prior to Tasha's coming out, oh, there's going to be a barbarian subclass that has some magic that goes with it, and you'll think it's pretty cool, I would have said, absolutely not, because it specifically says when you rage, you
You
can't
can't do
cast
magic.
spells.
Like that has been a thing since Barbarian has existed in pen and
Yes,
paper games.
exactly. So I'm going, why would I want a class where my core class ability is at odds with something else I can do? I'm not
Hmm.
interested. But the fact that the wild magic barbarian, and I was scared of the name because I thought of the wild magic sorcerer, which I actually love,
Yeah.
but I like how you can't get a bad result on the wild magic barbarian table.
Hmm.
They're different. There's definitely some chaos to it, which I think is cool, but I could see the appeal of playing it
Absolutely.
because no matter what you get, it's pretty good. Some are better in different situations than others, but nothing you get is really bad. But at the same time, it doesn't scream barbarian to me. Like that's not where I thought a barbarian was going to go. And then seeing it, I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this. Like when we
Yeah.
talked about barbarians, this was not the subclass that I said, dump it, get out of here.
Yep.
Like
Because it's cool.
it is. It is. Whereas the ancestral guardian needs to go back to being either a paladin or a cleric because
Yeah.
that's what it
Or
is.
just, you know, a proper ancestor summoning or just going Super Saiyan,
I
basically.
mean, honestly, if you're gonna go ancestor summoning, go ahead and put that in like a druid or a monk for
Also,
me. Put
yes.
that in a monk and let me truly go Super Saiyan.
That
That's
would be super dope.
yeah. I
Uh
call upon the spirits of my ancestors and I can fight like Goku
yep. I mean, you'll still
for
get
it.
beat by Saitama, but
I mean, it's gonna happen.
one
It's gonna
punch,
happen.
baby. Uh
What is it? What does you always say? As long as you don't get hit, right? Isn't that what you always say?
that's true.
Okay, yeah.
It's
What
true.
what happened?
But Goku's not good at not getting hit.
Sure. What happens when Saitama hits you?
No.
Yeah, you lose, right? What
No.
happens when you have no constitution? You eventually get hit by that natural 20.
Or
You
not.
die. Yeah,
Or
you
not.
die. Which is why constitution is not a dump stat. And
Constitution
we
is a goddamn dump stat sometimes.
never, never, never.
Uh disagree. Hard disagree. But so like Tasha's another thing that that book does that I really appreciate, and I kind of touched on it when we were talking about Pixie. That is my foot. Why are you licking my foot?
Y'all
Anyway,
friends. Y'all friends.
anyway, God, where was I going? Another thing that I think really flipped the script with Tasha's is that
Yeah.
it was written in a way that when you look at all of the rule changes, all of the optional things that were added, all the new spells, the new items, the new everything, all of it felt like instead of being written by people who are overly concerned with the lore,
Yeah.
it's just written. It seems like it was written by players, and it's like, yeah, this is kind of weird, but it's cool, so let's do it.
And I think what I really like about it, this is the first time an aspect of 5e has felt like its own thing. I mean, yes, fifth edition and 3.5 are very, very different from a
Yes.
mechanic standpoint. Um, Obviously, you can customize more,
Mm-hmm.
but deep down, we were just spending all our times in the Forgotten Realms, the Sword Coast,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the stuff in the adventures. Ravenloft is not a new thing. The
Yeah.
Abyss is not a new thing. Icewind Dale is not a
Not
new thing.
new.
The Waterdeep, not a new city. And so now comes this book that goes, well, what if you wanted to change whatever? Who's to say you just couldn't?
Mm-hmm.
And it actually leads me to one of my absolute favorite things in here. And on paper, it's a spell that seems kind of useless
Okay.
because um, you have to work with your DM if you take this as a player.
Okay.
And that's Dream of the Blue Veil.
Oh yeah.
Like the fact that, the material component is a magic item or a willing creature from the destination world. You travel to another world with this spell. And to me, that's just really freaking cool.
Yep. That
It's,
spell is just asking for somebody to do a time travel campaign.
yeah, either a time travel campaign or, I mean, the possibilities to me are limitless. As a player, if I'm gonna play a class that can get access to that spell, be it a wizard or maybe I'm playing a bard and I'm planning on taking it with my magical secrets,
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to my DM and say, okay, look, in my backstory, here's where I'm actually from. It is from elsewhere. Come up with a reason why you're not there anymore, or let the
Mm-hmm.
DM help you come up with a reason. And then eventually, at some point, Dream of the Blue Veil can be cast. And there are, to me, so many different uses for that. Maybe you're going back to their world to face whatever the big bad is.
Or
Maybe that's
maybe
just
it's
how,
just getting home.
yeah, I was gonna say, maybe that's how the campaign ends, is they hit a level where they can gain that spell, and it's just their way to go home. They can go home now. But they can use Dream of the Blue Veil to visit. They can
Yeah,
do that
they
as long as
absolutely
they
could.
keep something from this world that they met all their allies on. You could have that very, and what is that if not going back to our tropes? That is a trope for a fantasy ending of
Yep.
I'm going home, but I'll still visit.
Yep.
Like that's a total thing.
And the totem has to be a stuffed animal from a small child. It has to be. It 100% for that trope to be a thing. It has to be a stuffed animal from a small child. Or a small bit of machinery. That's how you get a Digimon
I
campaign. Oh,
mean,
mm-hmm. Yep, that just dawned on me. That's how you get a Digimon campaign. We're going to the digital world next time I run a campaign. It's fine.
that's it. Your next one's Digimon.
Yep, that's it. That's what it's gonna
That
be. Next time
that's
I run a
fair.
campaign,
Totally.
it's gonna be Digimon. I don't give a shit. How do you get there?
But
A wizard casts Dream of the Blue Veil
Dream of the
on
Blue
you.
Veil.
That's Jedi. Yo, it writes
I
itself, people.
It does, but it's, you know on paper on its own, it's not what you would say is a useful spell. Like,
No, not really.
but it's a wonderful story beat. It leads you from act 1 to act 2 or act 2 to act 3 in the story of the campaign you're playing. And I love that spell. Again, it encourages you to be creative and expand your campaign and your
Mhm.
story.
And that's one of the things that really corroborates like the idea that Tasha's was written by players rather than lore masters. You know, because a lot of these things are just like, hey, this is ridiculous and fun. Let's put it in. You
Right?
know,
I mean,
and
just look at the.
it gives me big. A lot of Tasha's gives me big 3.5 vibes
Mhm.
because one of the biggest ways that Wizards got content for 3.5 was on the official wiki, where they just put out the template of how they initially balance things. And they're like, all
Yeah.
right, throw your stuff on our wiki, and you'll get a writer's credit if we use it.
Well, the most of what was on the wiki was far from balanced.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I didn't necessarily say that all of it was balanced.
No, there's lots on the wiki that is just unusable
Pigs,
because that is just not balanced at all. But
Pixie, stop chewing at my carpet. Sorry.
dogs are awesome, but what are you gonna do, right?
Y'all. She's just a little puppy.
She
Little
is.
puppy.
She's sweet. Oh, look at that face. Look at that face.
Yeah.
Oh, the guest star.
But
The guest.
but yeah, I think Tasha's really screams like, "Hey, we just want you to have fun and make stuff, even if it doesn't make sense."
Yeah. And you gotta love that.
Yeah, and
I'm big on it.
yeah. Well, and it's a thing that I've noticed. There's a big difference between people that played 3.5 for their first games, or played even like 2 or 3.5 as their first games, as opposed to people that played 4 or 5 for their first games. The the people that played like 3.5 and earlier as their first games, they're the kind of players and DMs that are looking for this fun, weird shit
Yes.
more often than people that started on 4. And for people that started on 4th edition, I'm sorry. Because that's just me. I did not like 4th edition at all.
No. I neither did I. It's too much math. Too much
Yeah,
math.
and for me, it's because it was missing all of these fun customization things that are coming back in 5th.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, not every character needs like a healing surge or whatever. And
Yeah, not everyone needs to know how to heal. Sometimes you just have to learn how to not get hit.
or not care if you get hit. Thank you, barbarians.
Truth.
Like just have more hit points in the entire monster manual combined, and you just don't care anymore. Like, oh, you're rolling with advantage. That's cute. I'll half the damage. Just get back to me when you're done flailing uselessly.
Yep. And that's, I
Um,
think, uh, well, no, you go ahead. You go
I was
ahead.
saying another big thing in here that is huge to me in this book because we've talked about it a million times,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of a very unwritten house rule for a lot of people. The fact that it's in this book, chapter 4, Dungeon Master's Tools, first thing it says, session 0.
Yep.
It goes into the importance. And if you look at it in here, it says this is why it's done: to establish expectations, outline the terms of social contract, and share house rules. The flat out, they're like, this is where we're going to agree how we're
Mm-hmm.
playing this game.
Well, also,
And
I love in that the acknowledgement of house rules,
yes, like
which
flat
is
out
like,
saying, if you use them, this is when you talk about them.
yeah, like we know y'all got your crazy house rules. We've seen the debates on Twitter about how to play Uno,
Yes.
and the fact that everyone disagrees with what the company says is the official rules. So if you're going to have house rules, use them.
Yeah, and also be consistent about them. Though I
Mm-hmm.
will say, almost all of you out there with your critical fumble or your called shots tables, almost all of them are broken and almost all of them are dumb. And I'll tell you why. Because as a DM, if you use those 100% of the time against your players, especially those called shots, almost every combat's going to turn into a TPK because you get more
Yeah.
monsters than they have. And that's why game balance is important, but also house rules need to be understood and
Yep.
thought out.
House rules are importanter.
They are. And don't be afraid of using them. Like the fact that it
Yep.
brings them up. It's like if you have them and everybody agrees on them,
Use it.
just use them. I've seen inspiration used different ways by people
Mm-hmm.
where they flat out go whatever the average party level is, the inspiration is the equivalent of a bardic inspiration of a bard of that level.
Mm,
So it goes from a D6 up to a D12 as the players level up, but you just get this inspiration that you have the same amount of time as a bardic inspiration to roll, as opposed to you can have advantage on a roll, or you can use it to re-roll. I've seen it used both ways.
hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen inspiration used in creative ways, which I like.
yeah, and it's another big piece of that. Like Tasha's is changing up the game, and that's why it's such an important
Yes.
source book. Because other source books did not have not done things like this. Other
No.
source books have just been like, all right, here's a couple new subclasses and a new item, or
Yeah. Or
here's a new school of magic.
like I I look at the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide, which I like, but that's because I'm a lore dork. I
Yes,
love
yes, you are.
all the info about all these civilizations up and down the Sword Coast.
Yeah,
It interests me. It helps me with writing stuff, and that's cool. However, it also gave us the Purple Dragon Knight, and that
fucking Purple Dragon Knight.
cannot be forgiven or forgotten.
Nope.
And so you look at that book, and then you look at Tasha's, and you look at everything that it gave us, and that just tells me one thing: they learned from their mistakes.
Yep. There is one thing that scares me about Tasha's though,
What's
and
that?
that is the fact that with optional rule tables, we could get a Purple Dragon Knight that doesn't suck,
You know, I would like that
and that
because
scares me.
yeah, but the name is cool. The
The
Purple
name is so
Dragon
cool.
Knight. I mean, it's one of the best names, and it's the only thing in 5e that I've banned from my table.
100%.
I've
Well, it's not
complete
the only thing, but
well, yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about. There's a
yep.
certain set of monsters that just don't exist
Yep.
somehow. There's really good pest control in all my worlds. It's
It seems like
very
there would
good
be
at it.
very bad pest control because they take care of a lot of flies.
Well, you know what? Those aren't a problem in my worlds. So it's like, you know what? Terminix has a great contract in all my worlds. You just call the exterminator.
There's
They
was
get
a
it
wizard
all
in the
taken care of.
past. There was a wizard in the past that cast a spell of genealogical doom.
Yep,
Uh,
and that's where it all happened.
it's just a spell of genocide.
Yep, and I will not apologize for arachnocide in my campaigns because they don't exist. But honestly, yeah, and when I say this, I'm not even kidding. If one of my players was playing a fighter and they're like, okay, at level 3, I'm going to take the Purple Dragon Knight as my subclass, I go, no, you're not.
Correct.
I'm not,
Just like
I'm
nope.
not even kidding. I hate the subclass so much because it's so bad. I'm unwilling to let somebody play something that completely terrible. And
But it's the wildest thing to my brain that like with the way that like optional class rules have rolled up, Tasha's laid the groundwork for fixing the Purple Dragon Knight.
they did, and
Yeah,
I think it's actually exciting.
it's
And
weird that it's possible, and it scares me a little bit because no system should have that good of a fix. Like,
you know
no,
what?
that's just too good.
You know why it should really excite you is, to me, what this has laid the groundwork for. And I don't think we'll see it even next year, because I think they've been smart how they've been laying out stuff with
Mm-hmm.
fifth edition. Um, this is the edition that's here to stay for a long time. It's
Yep.
very popular.
And I think
It
they very much embraced that.
Oh yeah, and this is the most popular D&D has ever been,
Yep.
and it's everywhere. It's accessible. It's fun.
It's
There
been
are
translated into so many different languages now. Like,
yeah,
yo,
like you can buy like there are Funko Pops of D&D characters now. You can get a Strahd von Zarevich Funko Pop. I'm going to get a
mm-hmm.
Strahd Funko Pop because I love Strahd.
Well, like, and
But
did you just see that, like, with how big D&D's gotten, with that, like, WizKids, a very popular publisher of a bunch
yep,
of D&D miniatures.
originally a local company.
Yep, they're making a set for Critical Role, a
Yeah,
show about a show of just people playing D&D,
yeah.
and one of the minis that they are making is just of the DM.
Yeah, it's just a Matt Mercer.
It's
Like,
just Mercer.
and this is their second wave of Critical Role minis because they
Yeah.
already did one for Wildmount, and now they're doing one for the new Taldore book, a book which is technically a third-party book because it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be Darrington Press, and not like WotC isn't just going to go, we recognize it as official because we're not stupid. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one of the minis is straight up just Matt Mercer.
Yep.
And that's where we're at with Dungeons and Dragons now. So they know fifth ed is successful and it's going to be around for a while. So here's why I'm excited. And I don't think it'll be next year. And I'm hoping it'll be the year after. I'm hoping it'll be next year, but I don't think it will. I think we're about to see the introduction of prestige classes.
Yo, that would be dope.
I think we're going to get there where, and I honestly, I think we'll see it as an either or thing where it's like you can multi-class or you can prestige class, but you can't both. And you'll get DMs like me who will go, fuck it, do both. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun. But I want prestige classes to come back.
Yep.
I I love the archetypes. I really, really do like them. Um, but I'd like to even split that a little bit more. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, because of the lack of customization within fifth edition, even with Tasha's optional
Yeah.
rules, it's still a little limiting. Like I spoke
It's
to someone recently
yeah,
who,
it's one of those we're still stuck at like after level 3, you're basically locked in.
yeah, because let's be dead honest. If you built a half orc barbarian and I built a half orc barbarian, and we both picked the same subclass, and we both had to use standard array for our stats, our characters aren't going to look that different
Truth.
at level 3. Like, because we're not gonna avoid putting stats and strength and con. You're a
No,
barbarian.
you're a
You need
barbarian. You do that.
those. You're actually being kind of a dick if you don't, because now you're hurting your party.
Yep.
They need you to be good at those things. So okay, my strength's high, my con's high, my dexterity probably doesn't suck because
Mm-hmm.
I need good initiative, and that means between intelligence, wisdom, charisma, I'm completely dumping one of those. One's going to be okay, and one's just going to be a 10. And
Yep.
that's kind of like where our only variance is going to be.
Yeah.
And then if we both pick the same archetype, the only difference would be as we level up, who takes ASIs and who takes feats, and what feats do we take.
Yep.
And that's still not that different.
It's a
I
very
would,
small change.
yeah, I would love to see where if we both took Berserker, if there were ways where that was a little
Yeah.
different.
Where like
Um,
as you level up further, you get to be like a wild berserker as opposed to a like I don't know what you'd say, like a reserved berserker or something like
right,
that.
yeah, and
Like the thing where like battle rage makes you weirdly calm as
yeah,
opposed to
like
battle rage makes you go into a frenzy.
I'd love to see a little bit of tweaking with that. Like the one that's actually the closest to it is the totem warrior barbarian, because you get
Mm-hmm.
lots of other little choices you get to make in there, and it's not quite like prestige class, but it's a little closer.
Yeah.
But I think Tasha's has really sort of opened the door for things like that to happen. Maybe there'll be more erratas or optional rules or whatever you want to call them. Or finally, we get to the point where we can have prestige classes again. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to have these things where it's like, okay, if you are a fighter, a barbarian, or a ranger, you can take gladiator, because gladiator was my favorite
Yep.
prestige class
Well, and
in
actually,
3.5.
if you think about it, we're going to see a splash of that when the I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but the one that's like kind of combining a few like wizard and bard like wizard
Oh,
schools and bard colleges.
Strixhaven.
Yeah, Strixhaven, because there's a subclass that there's a subclass that they've already mentioned that's going to be in there where that you can take either as a bard or a wizard,
Yeah,
and
like,
that's exciting.
and I want to see more of that.
See, and that's the big kind of change that like Tasha had like 5 changes of that level, and
Yeah,
like that's one just in that book in that new book that's coming out. And like you said, I think Tasha's really kicked open the door on like, hey, we can make these changes and it's
yeah.
okay. The players will like them.
We can do whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
And then one last little thing in Tasha's I loved. It's
Little
in one
thing.
specific subclass. That's why I say little. In Fighter, there's a bit where it talks about the new Battle Master maneuvers that have been added. And then it gives templates for example Battle Masters and how to build them, which, okay, you and I have both been playing tabletop games for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need something like that if I'm going to play a Battle Master. I kind of know how I want to build my character, but if you ask me, Battle Master is far and away the best and coolest fighter subclass
Oh yeah.
because of all the cool shit you get to
Because you
do.
have fighter spells.
Yeah, but if you're brand new to the game and you see all those, I can see getting very intimidating and going, champion.
Yep.
I love champion. Nothing wrong with champion, but I could see a new player talking themselves out of it. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that the builds are in there, where they're going, oh, hey, you want to be a pugilist? Well, if you take this, 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 and this, you'll actually be really set up well for success with
And
that.
you'll be able to do that like this.
And I want to see, and I'm crossing my fingers we get this in Strixhaven, where it's like, I want to be a spellcaster who's, I want to be a pyromancer. And so it's like, okay, make sure you take this, 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 and this spells. And it really lets you know, hey, here are the various fire spells, or here are spells that can control flame, or maybe you didn't think about this spell because it can do
Mm-hmm.
this. I really want to see more of that,
Yeah.
because I think if you give new players the tools to have something exciting with just a little bit of hand holding, it's going to help inspire them to create their own things down the line.
Well, and also having those kind of guides, uh, and having them like be specific to subclasses
Yeah.
like that one like those ones are. Having those in there also helps DMs with new players be like, hey, I'm really busy this week, but we're supposed to start next week.
Yeah.
Look at these, so
Exactly.
that I don't have to help you build it step by step, because like I have a job, or I have kids to take care of, or I have an adorable little puppy to watch.
Doggy. Or I'm busy writing for this campaign and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And so just having those little things to help are so nice, and again, a big game changer, because like now that it's been done, it can be more easily repeated.
Right. And it's only going to, I think, um, expand and grow even better from here. I think people are going to be excited with what we see in Fizzbands with the Dragonborn. I
Mm-hmm.
think Strixhaven is going to have some new, wonderful optional stuff that just blows our mind. And I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that um, Wild Beyond the Witchlight as a Feywild adventure, that's going to give us some adventure specific stuff. Like, we got Tasha's, like, where are
Mm-hmm.
we going next from here? What are the next things we're going to get? I'm
And
so optimistic and
also
excited
just
for the.
giving us stuff in the Feywild is gonna be super
It's
fun,
about time. But
because
yeah,
so little has been even for people that are like super lore heavy. There isn't a whole lot that's been written about the Feywild.
no, for
It's
our
just kind
campaign,
of it's just kind of there and weird.
almost everything I took for the Celestial Realm, the Feywild, and the Abyss, three places y'all have been, I took from the 3.5 Manual of the Planes,
Oh yeah.
which you can find the PDF for online for free, and it's a great resource. Um,
Oh, hands
I
down.
I get why they haven't made like a manual of the planes or anything like that for fifth ed, because those things are out there. But at the same time, because I like my physical books, so I can put like sticky notes in them to refer to
Yep.
pages that I want to get to. I wish there was one for fifth ed,
That's
but
oh, Buck, that's one thing we did not mention about Tasha's, is just as a physical book, that bitch thick, and I'm here for it.
for what it has, it's just under 200 pages, but every page is full of content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is nothing in here that I go, why do I care about this? It's got puzzles. It's got DM stuff. It's got player stuff. It talks about having patrons for your players,
Mm.
not warlock patrons, but like, hey, DM, do your players need a reason to all work together? Here you go. Here's who they work for. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
benefits from that. Here's the drawbacks from that. Here's how much they get paid from that.
Yeah, and
It's
that's a big one because fifth edition they've been kind of stingy on telling us exactly how much things cost.
yeah. So long
Ooh,
story
shit,
short,
we're at time.
yeah, if you don't have this book, get this book. Ideally from your local shop. Buy local.
Yep.
But don't Amazon. If that's the only way you can afford it, I understand. I'm guilty of it too. But
Mm.
if you can afford to support your local shop, buy local.
Ooh, for some reason the video has frozen, but the program can still hear us, and now it's
Yeah.
just stuck on those faces, and I apologize.
Oh man, that good, huh?
Oh, it's real pretty.
Both of
Uh,
us?
yeah. Oh yeah. Like I'm looking
Nice.
to the side, and like you're halfway through a word. Oh, it's
Good, good.
beautiful. This is a
That's
great way to end the episode.
that's when
Uh,
I'm at my sexiest, it's just looking awkward with my mouth open.
yep.
That's
And that is 100% how it is. I just checked on the other screen, and yep, it's just frozen,
yeah.
which is
So
great. Huh?
to
But
all
my
of you,
mouse still moves.
oh,
Let me see if I just.
yeah, to
Nope, that's still
yeah,
not changing it. Great.
to all of you
Good thing
still
it's the end of
watching,
the
yeah,
episode.
we
Uh,
appreciate you looking at these mugs right now, and
but thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for
thank
being
you.
here. Please do all the internet things to help us. Do remember that this is episode 47. We will be going on hiatus for a little bit after episode 50. Episode 50 will be our big like, hey, we did things over the year.
Yeah,
Uh, and then we're taking a little break to have some time for us to get ready for our our campaign 2, which will be which will be recorded and put onto this channel for all of you good people.
and we need
uh,
time to figure out how the fuck to do
we absolutely do.
that.
So without further ado, because
Yeah.
it's still stuck on these freeze faces,
Woo!
what do we always say?
Do something nice for yourself this weekend.